In the year 70 AD, Roman legions sacked and burned Jerusalem. Israel would remain a nation in exile for nearly 2,000 years. But in the aftermath of World War II, the people of the book returned home. Israel's rebirth and survival in the 20th century has often been called a miracle. Those who were there cite their own experiences as proof. I'm Michael Greenspan. I'm an investigative journalist. These are their stories. In my search to find out if miracles really happen, and if they especially happen in Israel, I've come to realize that miracles most often don't flaunt themselves. You have to look for them. From a distance, they often appear to be an achievement of great heroics or simply incredible luck. But from the view of those who experience them, it becomes obvious that there are forces at work beyond human effort or good luck. Today I'm meeting two individuals who took part in such a story. An incredible story, and most of it didn't happen in Israel at all. On Sunday morning, June 27, 1976, Air France Flight 139 departed from Tel Aviv's David Ben-Gurion Airport with 229 passengers bound for Athens and then Paris, most on holiday, many with children, wives, and sweethearts. The short flight to Athens was uneventful. The plane landed. A few passengers got off, others got on. After a short while, Flight 139 again departed for Paris. It never made it. Passenger Sarah Davidson was on Flight 139 along with her husband Uzi and their two sons. It was going to be a holiday.
I didn't see anything outstanding in the plane, but I heard a shout from the first class, and I saw a waitress coming in front of us, and she looked frightened so much, and I told Uzi, listen, we are hijacked.
Sit down. May I have your attention, please? This plane is now under our control.
What was the feeling you had then?
Oh, you can't describe it. It's such a shock. The only thing that I remember was the eyes of my two boys. They were looking up. It was her first flight in their life. It was the first vacation that we decided to take them with us out of the country. And the big one, Ron, said, oh God, why it happened to us? Then Uzi remembered that in his pocket he has a pass to get to his army base. So we took the pass and we chewed it, and we put it into a can of cola.
You wanted to hide your identity?
Of course.
Flight 139 had been commandeered by 5 Palestinians and 2 German neo-Nazis, members of 2 radical terrorist groups. The captain managed to signal Athens of the hijacking. Greece immediately alerted both Israel and France. Israeli special forces were put on alert. Prime Minister Rabin was reached during a session of the Knesset. Meanwhile, on Air France 139, the hijackers ordered the plane to fly to Benghazi on the northern coast of Libya. One passenger, a pregnant woman needing emergency medical care, was allowed to leave the plane. The plane refueled, then took off again, this time for Entebbe, Uganda.
When we were on the air, we were very frightened that it's all going to burst out and we are going to be killed in the air.
You thought they'd blow up the plane?
Yeah, they said that they are going to do that. If we move, if we do that, if we do that. We were so frightened, we just followed the orders, that's it.
When you had these hijackers threatening you,
Yeah.
what were you feeling as a Jew?
I felt anger because I knew there were two Germans. I also recognized in the accent of the hijacker who was in the cockpit that he is not an Arab. He was a German. Thank God I wasn't in the Holocaust, but all my family, my parents, brothers and sisters, my grandpa and grandmother, everybody there were killed in the Holocaust. And to think that two Germans can these days to do the same thing to us, it was a terrible feeling.
מטוס נחת באוגנדה. They've landed in Uganda.
Uganda? But Israel has no diplomatic relations with Uganda.
Yes, you are right. But the foreign minister is on it right now, trying to reach a mean through the French authorities.
When we saw outside Idi Amin, we were happy. We were so happy to see him there because we knew he is a friend of Israel. We saw around him some Arabs, and we understand that they are the commanders of the whole thing. But we thought, here we are going to another plane to fly back to Paris, and that's it.
I want to help you. And now, shalom!
They put us into an old terminal, very dirty, with some old chairs. They were standing around. We understood that here we are in prison. I remember hearing shouting and crying because many people just realized what happened.
Everybody stay where you are now.
And nobody talks. Will you shut up?
Sarah and the other passengers have no idea that their ordeal is only beginning. Tuesday, June 29th. Late in the day, the terrorists make their demand. Return of the passengers and crew in exchange for the release of 53 convicted terrorists in Israel's jails and 4 others imprisoned elsewhere in Europe. If this demand is not met within 48 hours, the plane will be blown up with all passengers aboard.
You must have felt very far away from home.
All this week we were thinking that if we could be a little bit closer, maybe our army could save us. But being so far away, we even couldn't dream about anybody from Israel coming to save us. We tried to organize somehow this life in prison. We, the Israelis, find out somehow between 250 people, we found each other and we were gathering, maybe not all of us, but part of us, starting talking to each other, Hebrew of course, because there were a lot of French people, a lot of American and others.
זאת אוגנדה, כאן אנטבה, זה אגם ויקטוריה, ופה קניה.
אז כל מה שאנחנו צריכים זה לחצות את אגם ויקטוריה.
אני לא יודעת לשחות.
Did the Israelis look out for each other just because they knew the same language, or is it something about...
No. I can't describe it, but it's a feeling that when you are in trouble, you need your brothers around you, and they are coming. Part of us were religious people, so they were praying all the time. I envy them. I would like to, but you can't change your whole state of mind in one day. And I had to look after my 2 boys. Ron, the big one, was sick, very sick. He got high fever. The doctor among the terrorists wanted to transfer him to the hospital. We didn't let him, thank God. I have to take care of Benny, who was frightened to death because of all what happens around.
Were you frightened?
Of course I was, but I think that taking care of the children took it out from me somehow.
The government has decided to commence negotiation for the release of the hostages being held in Entebbe. We've agreed in principle to release prisoners.
Negotiations begin with the terrorists in order to buy time. while military planners face the implausible possibility of safely mounting a rescue operation 2,400 miles away. Shiki Shani will pilot the C-130 aircraft that will attempt to bring a rescue team to Entebbe, a mission far from certain when it was proposed.
Did you really think from the beginning that there was a possibility of doing this?
We were convinced that we can do it. We are convinced that nobody will expect us to be so crazy to do it, and that's why we can do it. Technically, it's not a big deal. You fly, you land, you pick up the hostages, you fly back. What's the big deal? But the surprise was the issue. I mean, if we can keep it quiet and if we keep it as a total surprise, we'll bring the hostages back. And Rabin himself, being the prime minister, he expected it, and I truly believe that it can be done.
After 2 days of being all together in very bad conditions, they said that they want to release our conditions to make it more comfort, and they will pass part of us to the other room.
When your name is called, pick up your things and go through that opening into the next room. Is that clear? Goldstein! That's me. Rappaport! Mr. and Mrs. Cohen!
After 5-6 names, we realized that they are calling only the Israelis, only the Jews. Among us were Holocaust survivors that really passed again a selection. And for us, Israelis born here in Israel, we couldn't even dream that such a thing can happen again, and it happened.
אתה רואה את זה? אף אחד לא בא אז, אף אחד לא יבוא היום. אם אנחנו לא דואגים לעצמנו, אף אחד לא דואג לנו.
Wednesday, June 30th. The terrorists begin to release the non-Jewish and non-Israeli Air France passengers. First a group of 47 and later the remaining 101. The captain and crew of Air France 139 refused to leave without all their passengers.
I'm responsible for the lives of these passengers, all of them. Why the separation?
We're not going to take them anywhere.
They determined to share whatever fate befalls the Jews. "105 Jewish and Israeli passengers remain at gunpoint in the Entebbe terminal. While the hostages of Air France 139 are occupied with their survival, Israel is occupied with their rescue."
We had only one obstacle that we need to overcome. If somebody find out that we are there or coming or getting closer, or because it's the middle of the night, somebody will switch off the runway lights. Here you fly 7 hours and 30 minutes from Sharm el-Sheikh, where we took off in the Sinai, and you get there's no runway lights. So we had to develop a technique, and we had 2-3 days for that, to land on a dark runway at night. And then we had to demonstrate our capability to the leadership of the military. We just had to take all our capabilities, all our knowledge, and to pack it into one night and just do it.
חוליה מספר 1. חוליות שוקי ומאיר.
Thursday, July 1st. The deadline for release of terrorists from Israeli prisons passes. Israeli negotiators managed to convince the hijackers to extend the deadline to Sunday at 2 p.m. The terrorists vow that if this deadline is not met, the hostages will be executed. The Entebbe rescue effort is dubbed Operation Thunderbolt, and the timetable is accelerated. At Entebbe, one of the hostages, Mrs. Dora Bloch, takes deathly ill and is removed to a hospital in Kampala. It will prove to be a tragic move.
It was Friday that everybody started being sick, stomach, and the water in the toilets were gone. Idi Amin came and told us that negotiations went very bad. Israel is not ready to release terrorists, so on Sunday they will start killing people. Who will be the first, nobody knows.
Late into the night on July 2nd, Shiki and the other IDF pilots practice landing the C-130s in the dark, anticipating the landing lights may be turned off at the Entebbe airport.
שכתבת עלינו בתורתך, על ידי משה עבדך, מפי כבודך כמוהו.
The next morning, July 3rd, the combat units load their equipment and vehicles and wait for the signal that the mission is operational. The word comes at noon. At 1:20 p.m., they are airborne. With the planes already in the air, Prime Minister Rabin summons the full Israeli cabinet. They give the final approval for Operation Thunderbolt. Shiki and his fellow pilots must now deliver 200 Israeli special forces and their equipment over 2,400 miles of hostile Arab territory without being detected, or worse yet, shot down. Shiki and his fellow pilots fly as low as possible to avoid radar detection, subjecting themselves to turbulent weather and violent storms over Lake Victoria.
It was a one-way ticket. We didn't have fuel to fly back. We needed to do some fueling somewhere on the way back, or in Entebbe itself. Needless to say that we couldn't hear the radio after we took off. And again, remember, surprise was the issue. If somebody pick us up and somebody do the linkage. Ethiopia, they didn't have a real air force or radar, so we flew higher to make it more comfortable. It was night. And then we split into myself to land single to maximum surprise, minimum noise. The other three were just holding pattern over the Victoria Lake.
11:01 p.m. Only seconds behind schedule, Shiki Shani's C-130 lands at the outer marker of Entebbe Airport and unloads the black Mercedes and escort vehicles intended to make the Ugandan guards at the terminal think Idi Amin is paying a late-night visit to the hostages. The deception works. Only near the terminal do two Ugandan guards attempt to stop the vehicles. They are shot. The paratroopers run the remaining 40 yards to the entrance of the terminal. It's now a race against time to avoid a massacre of the hostages.
I put up a little bit my head and I saw a soldier wearing a uniform, holding a big gun. He looks to me very small, maybe because I was on the floor. And then he said in Hebrew, חבר'ה, באנו לקחת אתכם הביתה.
באנו לקחת אתכם הביתה.
It's guys, we came to take you home. Listen, how can you describe that?
How?
Told you. I don't know. For me, if he would have wings and it has been an angel, it wouldn't be strange for me as I heard this Hebrew sentence so close, so feeling at home, in such a faraway place that I couldn't even dream that I will hear Hebrew so close to me.
Unfortunately, in the crossfire, we lost a couple of hostages. And then, only then, like 10 minutes after that, we landed the other 3 airplanes that were waiting, just more forces and 1 airplane just to pick up all the passengers.
Within 3 minutes, the gun battle inside the old terminal is over. All 7 hijackers are dead. 2 hostages are killed in the crossfire. Outside, the gun battle continues with the Ugandan collaborators as the hostages are evacuated to the waiting C-130s. Tragically, Force Commander Yoni Netanyahu, brother of the future Prime Minister of Israel, is also struck down by sniper fire as he leads the hostages to safety. Dora Bloch, the sick hostage who had been taken to a hospital in Kampala, is later murdered on Idi Amin's orders. Within 58 minutes of landing at Entebbe, the freed hostages are airborne. On the ground, IDF infantry stay behind to destroy Russian MiGs parked on the airfield to prevent any pursuit. At precisely 40 minutes past midnight on July 4th, the last IDF airplane departs Entebbe.
We took off one after the other, landed in Nairobi, refueled the airplanes, and then we came back home, flew back home 8 hours.
Were you confident that you would succeed?
Yes, because we were super motivated. We were highly trained on knowing the job, and we also believed that we deserved it. This country suffered so much. This country had so many wars, and here comes an opportunity. And I mean, it's justice. It's maybe God is going to work overtime that day.
How long did it take before you came back down to earth and started to understand this was really happening?
Until I got back home, I was in a stage of shock because it's unbelievable. It's really unbelievable. I was sure that I'm in a kind of a dream, that it's not real. It can't be. I am sure it was a miracle. Beside all the credits to the army, to the planners, to the pilots, to the soldiers, I'm sure something more happened that we can't describe and maybe we can't understand.
To be a military pilot and to be involved in saving life, this is wonderful. You do what you are trained to do as a military pilot, but you save life. It makes me feel wonderful even now, almost 30 years after that.
How did it change your view of yourself and of life itself?
It gives you another proportion to what happened in everyday life.
So where's the miracle at Entebbe? How could 6 Israeli aircraft travel 2,400 miles over hostile nations without once being detected by Arab or African radar? How was it possible for 4 giant C-130 transports, planes that can easily be heard a mile away, to glide at night onto a fully lit airport runway where 100 Ugandan soldiers and 7 hijackers are on high alert without anyone seeing or hearing these howling transports? There were snipers and sentries posted on the Entebbe airport tower, yet why didn't anyone see the planes landing just 1,000 feet away? Did some force blind their eyes? In the Bible, God blinded the eyes of those who would do his servants harm. Did this happen at Entebbe? Is it mere coincidence that the old terminal at Entebbe was built by an Israeli construction company who was able to provide the invaluable blueprints to the rescue planners? There was a Ugandan fighter squadron of Russian MiGs stationed at Entebbe, yet they didn't scramble, and mysteriously there were no pilots around. How come? The assault on the old terminal lasted less than 3 minutes, killing all 7 hijackers and rescuing the hostages. Within 7 minutes, the hostages were on board the C-130 that would take them home. Strategic planning, military skill, even good luck are just not adequate explanations. Perhaps a miracle is the only logical answer. In the search for miracles here, it's increasingly clear to me that if they are real, they're most often very personal and seldom recognized beyond the awareness of those who claim to have experienced them. Many observers of the Entebbe rescue were in awe at the daring courage of the rescuers and the tested bravery of the hostages. But among the soldiers and pilots and the passengers and crew of Air France 139, many saw themselves as not alone in their ordeal, the source of their strength and the swiftness of their hands emanating from a higher power. A miracle? The grace of God? We can debate the answer. But for many of those who lived the Entebbe nightmare, the words miracle and faith took on a very personal meaning. If there are miracles, I suspect that's what ultimately counts.